Death is a one-way door into the unknown and remains one of life's greatest mysteries. We all yearn for immortality, for life everlasting. Yet, in a world defined by impermanence and change, all beings eventually and inevitably succumb to aging, disease, and death.
The natural desire of every life is to get into a place where there is no misery, no sorrow. The goal of life, human life, is towards heaven. Heaven means what? A place where there is no death, no destruction, no old age, where there is no suffering. Where is that place? What you should do to get to a state where there is only bliss?
In this episode, we find out what one of India's best-known spiritual teachers has to say about death and moksha, or spiritual enlightenment, and hear personal accounts of how ancient Hindu wisdom can help to overcome feelings of grief and loss.
Through my guru, I learned that almost everything about life is uncertain. But one thing is certain, and that is death. Everything else in life can change anytime. Right? So keeping that in my awareness made me easily accept death of loved ones.
Enlightenment is that you accept the reality that you're not going to live forever. That, in the physical form, the here and now and the I and the ego, all that, it somehow or other has to end. What is your purpose of your existence? It's now to make good this human birth.
The Vedic tradition has always been very clear that our soul is something that is eternal. It is untouched, it is ever pure, and it is a part of that one universal consciousness.
When you consciously repose in your being, you encounter that which is magnificent, that which is universal, that which has no boundaries, that which has no time.
Hinduism regards death as a mere interlude, where the soul transmigrates from one life to the next, inhabiting numerous physical forms in an evolutionary journey that may take many lifetimes. It holds that the ultimate purpose of human life is to resolve all past karmas, the balance sheet of our prior deeds, both good and bad. In doing so, we escape samsara, the relentless cycle of birth and death, and attain moksha, a state of permanent and blissful spiritual enlightenment. From a Western perspective, His Holiness Sri Ravishankar may be considered a humanitarian and global peacemaker, but for many of his followers, he's believed to be a jivan mukta, one who has attained moksha while in a physical body.
This is a place where everybody dies. So many have died, and those who are living, they will all be dead, and those who will come in the future will also die. Death is not cruel, death is very compassionate.
In ancient times, a spiritual aspirant would have to undergo prolonged and severe austerities before being able to access sacred Vedic secrets on life and death. Sri has been credited with making many of these religious texts, often complex and arcane, easily available not just to Hindus, but to people of all faiths and backgrounds. One such text is the Katha Upanishad, on which he gave a series of talks.
Katha, tha means the final, the end. Kathopanishad, what is the final? What is the final thing about life? What is the end? What is the ultimate?
Profound insights about death are embedded in this ancient parable, in which a young boy, Nachiketa, puts forth questions to Yama, the Hindu god of death.
When someone dies, some people say they still exist, some others say they don't. So I want to know from you, who else can teach me this other than the Lord of Death? You know the truth, you teach me this. What is death? What is that ultimate secret that nobody is able to unveil?
Ansuya Kushal is a yoga and meditation teacher. As the last surviving member of a family of 5, she's well acquainted with the experience of loss.
You know, family is for everybody, like so important. No matter what fights you have, whatever, when you lose them, you really realize, wow, to have a family is so, so important. And it's so beautiful. And each one of my family members played a very special role, had different impacts on me. My mother, she taught me all about love, unconditional love, just by her being, not by talking to me about it, but just from the way she was. My father, he taught me no matter what the struggles of life are, you just go on and you find your peace, especially in spirituality. And my sister, she was this fun-loving person. People used to get attracted to her for her naturalness or authenticity. And my brother, he was the silent one, but full of knowledge about the world. So it was a nice mix of family. And I appreciated each one of them very much. My mother passed away in 1996. My father, 1997. When my mother passed on, I remember coming home every night from work. And I was like remembering how I used to cry every day for about 2-3 months. Every day driving home, I was crying.
A decade later, tragedy struck once again when Ansuya lost both her siblings to cancer within the short span of just a year. By this time, however, she had become fully immersed in the wisdom teachings of her guru, Sri Ravishankar.
With my brother and sister, by then I had so much knowledge from Art of Living, it made a huge difference. So as soon as all the ceremonies or whatever was over, it was like, okay, I know you're in a good place. You'll always remain in my heart and in my thoughts, but I would not worry about anything because I know you're in a good place. Through my guru, I learned that almost everything about life is uncertain. But one thing is certain, and that is death. So that's the only thing we all know, that one day we'll leave this body. Everything else in life can change anytime. Right? So keeping that in my awareness made me easily accept death of loved ones.
Acceptance also came from her belief that every soul chooses the time, place, and means of its own departure from the planet.
The reason we choose the way we're going to pass on is to wipe out certain karmas that we have accumulated over lifetimes.
Alexander Luthra, now called Swami Purna Chaitanya, was born in Leiden in South Holland. His parents were strongly influenced by Eastern philosophy.
In the sense, we had a normal Dutch family, but at the same time, because both my parents were quite spiritually inclined in a way, even though some of my upbringing was very similar to that of my peers, my classmates, there were some elements that were also quite unique for those days, like being a vegetarian. My parents used to meditate sometimes, so we were more exposed to that.
He shared an especially deep connection to his mum.
The kind of dedication that she had, the unconditional love. When I look back, the way she brought us up had a lot of values and a lot of wisdom in it. So the importance of compassion, of caring for people, the importance of service, that we are here on this planet for a bigger purpose. And also that faith that whatever happens, when you're really sincere, nature will take care, or God will take care of you, but you're not alone.
5 years ago, Swamiji's mother passed away from cancer.
So at some point we realized that she's probably not going to make it, because even the doctor said, no, there's nothing we can do. It was a sad time for all of us.
He travelled back home to care for his mum, and their final few weeks together softened his sadness and gave him a sense of closure.
She, at the end, was totally at peace because she knew that her time has come. She was a true yogi, so she finally left the body very peacefully, very contented.
Losing his mum in the prime of her life has left a lasting impression.
It was really a reminder once again that this life is temporary, and even though we are more than just the body, but we are here only for some time in this body to do certain things, and it can end any time. It puts your whole life in perspective. There are so many things where you worry about, or you get upset, or you get annoyed, and then suddenly you realize that these are such small, silly things. There is really no point in even worrying about it, or the things you think you want to achieve suddenly seem so meaningless. You think, come on, this is nothing, this is so small, and it will only last for some time. So I felt very grateful for all the years we had together, and for the fact that I had such a wonderful mother.
What happens when a person dies? Very few people are curious about it. We take life for granted. We take death for granted. We never question what is death, how it happens. After that, where do we go? We live here as though we have been here forever. In one way it is correct, because your spirit is so old. First spirit and then matter came. Consciousness first, and then it manifested into matter. Even before anything existed on this planet, you were there. We have been here many times. This is not the first time at all.
In his commentary on the ancient scripture, the Kathor Upanishad, spiritual teacher Sri Ravishankar shares Vedic secrets about the process of dying.
There is deeper knowledge here. The whole process of death. What happens? How do you die? First, the mind withdraws from the 5 senses with its impressions. You stop feeling, numbness starts. Sense of touch goes away. Sense of taste goes away. Smell goes away. Sight, and finally the sound. So from 5 senses, the mind withdraws with the impression of those senses. And then it snaps out of the body. Though it snaps out, it still has a sound. That's why singing, chanting, all this is very good for people on the other side. Meditating is very good for people on the other side who have crossed over. Your meditation, your peace touches their soul. That gives them relief. If you are crying and if you are miserable, and they also feel that misery. Once it snaps out of the body, it has such a freedom, and the spirit becomes so peaceful. In its peace, there is also all those impressions of craving. If a person is so fond of ice cream or so fond of burger, then those things will remain there. It takes nearly 3 days for the spirit to really adjust to the other side. It's very, very, very significant. That's why the close relatives and friends, people, for 3 days, their anguish is more. But after the third day, some relief starts coming up. The ancient system was for 10 days of mourning. 10 days you cry as much as you want. And 11th day you celebrate.
Naren Kala's forefathers came to South Africa at the turn of the 20th century. Hailing from Gujarat on the west coast of India, they came in pursuit of new business opportunities.
I grew up in a Hindu home, and the cultural and the spiritual values were inculcated by my dad primarily. He was a very straightforward person, and he believed very much in the truth, that whatever it is that you follow the path of truth. So these values, I mean, up till today, I treasure them. It means a lot to me.
At the age of 22, Naren was arranged married to a young girl from Mumbai.
Kiran literally means the rays of the sun. She came into my life like with that brightness. She was very creative, very innovative. She was full of fun. It brightened up our life. You know, it brightened up our family and our neighborhood, the people we came into contact with. My acquaintance with her brought a lot of value to my life. It was almost like my ship needed a captain, and the captain came in my life. My dad was pretty conservative, and she came from a very liberal background. So, you know, it was a good combination of two personalities, two values. But what we did have in common was the pursuit of a higher enlightenment that was always there.
The couple subsequently had 4 children and shared a marriage of 53 years.
With Kiran coming in my life, there was very quickly a strong attachment. You know, that how you get attached. When you marry somebody, you love somebody. So the attachment grew by the day. We had our ups and downs like any marriage has, but it was a very fulfilling kind of a life.
Then, in August 2018, Kiran passed away after 2 years of deteriorating health.
She was slowly dying, and we did not realize that that's what was happening.
For Naren, his wife's passing was a lesson in spiritual detachment.
You see, we all know that when you're born, you're also going to die one day. So we quite often, just shun that issue, that you one day you're going to lose your physical identity. My wife actually brought me to a level where I could handle this. Although she was a very caring person, and she really reached out to me and to so many people around her, that she did have, through her spiritual leanings, she had kind of a intuitive approach. She prepared me for this. So she got me into a state of acceptance. So whilst I miss her very much, I was able to handle it in a detached manner. I try and picture that how would she like me to live my life? And I'd say the kind of life I'm leading now is like the way she would have wanted me to lead my life.
Knowledge of death makes life very rich. If everybody just understand that we are all going to die, why would they worry? Why would they hate anybody? Why would they be greedy? This walking, talking body will become silent, and then the mind is gone from you. This awareness of death can make you alive much more. It can take the slumber out of us. And it brings heaven right here and now.
I think the biggest turning point was when I met my master, because till then I was looking for something authentic, some way to give direction to my life, to be useful. And when I met him, I found a true master, someone who really knows what he's talking about. So then I knew, okay, I have found a proper teacher. I have found a way, now I want to walk that path.
Vedic philosophy says that the path to moksha can be fraught with many distractions and pitfalls. It's for this reason that a Satguru is considered essential in the journey towards enlightenment.
It's my personal experience that having a master who can share his wisdom and his experience with you, it allows you to integrate those things into your day-to-day life, where it's not just reading something that sounds nice, but really making it your own.
Alexander Luthra was just 16 years of age when he met his spiritual master, Sri Ravishankar, at a public talk in Amsterdam.
One thing I remember, how natural and at home he felt. When he walked onto the stage, there were over 1,000 people sitting there, for him a different country, different culture. But the moment he walked into that hall, onto the stage, it's like he was at home, like in his own living room. And I remember when he spoke, his language was very simple, nothing complicated or very abstract. But at the same time, the truths he conveyed were very profound. And that translated into experience. So sitting there, you really knew, oh yeah, what is he talking about? How does this relate to my life?
That fateful meeting was the spark that ignited young Alex's spiritual journey. He soon became a regular participant of the Art of Living courses and later travelled to India, where he found himself drawn to ancient Vedic traditions. In 2012, Alex was formally initiated by Sri as a monk and given the name Swami Purna Chaitanya.
It gives me so much more fulfillment when I serve, when I dedicate my life to being useful to others, making a difference in their life, rather than just working to pay my bills, or rather than just taking care of my personal needs.
Now living at the Art of Living ashram under the blessed gaze of his guru, Swami Purna Chaitanya says that he has found his true home.
It is unique to have someone who can really care for you, be there for you, love you so unconditionally. When you know that, okay, whatever happens, whatever I do, I always have a place to go, or I have someone who is there for me, who will not judge me. So in a way that gives a lot of freedom and a lot of confidence in life.
Curiosity about death will also bring curiosity about life. And to understand life, you need to know death. You need to understand death, you need to know life. Death only indicates that life is eternal. But it's good to have that curiosity. What's after death? This very question gives a bigger dimension to our life. It expands our awareness, makes us think much bigger than day-to-day events and the circumstances that we face in life.
Ansuya Kushal has learnt a number of spiritual practices referred to as sadhana from the Art of Living courses.
As I started practicing it on a daily basis, I started seeing a huge transformation in myself. My relationships started improving. My perspectives on life started changing for the better. You know, when you practice yoga, although it appears very physical, it's actually working very much on the subtle layers as well. It works on the chakra system. In the end, it's all about energy. We're made up of atoms and elements, etc. So this energy centers actually get cleansed as well. It works on the impressions as well. You know, because you remain in centered, you remain in the moment. So you're not collecting impressions either at that time.
At the heart of her daily routine is an ancient breathing technique called the Sudarshan Kriya.
You know, the first thing we do when we're born is we take a deep breath in. The baby takes a breath in and then cries. That's what we all did. So life force entered us. And the last thing we do before we pass on is we breathe out. And then that's it, life leaves us. That's how powerful this breath is. It's so closely connected to life. Throughout our life, we're breathing in, but we're just taking it for granted. So I learned now through my path that this is so connected to life and living that we really need to give it attention.
Before attending to her daily chores and responsibilities, Ansuya spends the last 20 minutes of her daily practice in silent contemplation.
Science has proven that meditation really helps us to live life in a joyous way, in a peaceful way. So I practice mantra meditation on a regular basis. And wow, it takes me into such deep spaces that it just changes my day. Every time when I meditate, I'm finding I'm going into the space where I'm like not in my body anymore. You know, like my body actually becomes absolutely light and I become so expanded. I feel like I've totally dissolved into the universe. So I think if we have fears for death, meditation definitely gets rid of those fears.
Ansuya believes that the positive spiritual vibrations generated by her regular meditations touches the souls of her departed ancestors.
Many times, seekers, when you meditate, you find, oh, nothing is happening to me. Meditation is not happening. You know why? When you meditate, a portion of your meditation, a portion of that merit, whenever you do anything good, you give charity, that good vibes are passed on automatically. When you meditate and keeping in mind a departed soul, they get comfort.
Local priest Mukesh Bhai Joshi visits Hindu homes to conduct special prayers for departed family members.
Jai Sri Krishna. Your existence, the known existence, has come from your parents. And then your parents also came from their parents. So it's a handed down thing. So obviously, you want to show some sort of gratitude. Whenever you're having a priest coming in and they recite the prayers, or then immediately that aspect in you is awakened. It's, you know, your being is reminded of your origins.
Steeped in rich cultural traditions, these prayers have both a spiritual and sentimental value for Naren.
You see, your gratitude you owe to your parents, to your guru, and whoever brings you enlightenment. So you see these ancestry and your gurus in a godly light.
Growing up in a religiously devout home, Naren came into contact with many Hindu priests and teachers.
The spiritual people were always in touch with both families, my dad's family and my wife's family. They were constantly, in and out of the household. You were doing things more like parrot fashion, the old style. They tell you to just do things, and then you did them to please your parents. But the real meaning came when Guruji came into our lives.
Sri Ravishankar first visited South Africa in 1996.
It almost like Guruji found us rather than we going and looking for Guruji.
Naren and his wife Kiran felt blessed to host Guruji at their home during this and subsequent trips.
I was curious to know who is this Guru, what's he all about. But then what he turned out was very different from what I imagined. In reality, he was an easygoing kind of person. He just immediately flowed into you. Like he somehow could read your mind, and he could take you to another level. There is a kind of a divinity about him. And whilst he is very human, but at the same time he is way above it.
For Naren, the young Guru was like a breath of fresh air.
His whole approach was very sort of modern and palatable, in terms of the new era. And if you look at your Hinduism and your scriptures, they sound very complex. There are so many meanings you make of it. But with Sri, it's a very clear-cut thing.
Having someone to guide him spiritually has effected a profound change in his day-to-day thinking.
I think we're born to be happy. The Guru says, you are joy, you are happiness. Now you've got to live that. You live 40, 50 years, you live 80, 90 years. But life goes on. Humanity goes on. Why should we be unhappy? We will see happiness in everything. We will strive for it.
According to Sri, one's state of mind at the moment of death is important.
In death, only the physical body gets separated from the subtle body and the causal body. The subtle body is where all the impressions are there. Last impression of life is very, very important, because that becomes like a balloon over the spirit. Your strongest cravings and your strongest fear and aversion determines your next life.
One of the other practices I do is to read knowledge books from my spiritual path. And every time I read these, it just opens up another awareness of life and of death. When I read every morning, so I just open to any page, and when I read that, it just really talks to me. So there'll be a little page on attachment and how you can go past attachment by understanding life, understanding the soul, etc. So I learned that any relationship we have, sister, brother, mother, right? We give it a name. We say, this is my sister, then you love like that. This is my mother, then I love like that. So you sort of restrict your love to the title you've given to the relationship. So my guru has taught me that, don't give name and form to love, because love is like unlimited. It's like almost like expanded love, right? So when my mother passed on, I really felt like I hadn't done enough for her because she was in another city. So I learned after she passed away, I started giving much more attention to elderly. I started feeling so much more relief, It was like my mother was in everybody, it's like that.
The Mahamrityunjaya mantra, related to the Hindu god Shiva, is believed to help the soul to transcend death.
The mantra means a lot because, again, I bring my wife in, that she was consistently reciting the mantra. So I associate it with what my wife was going through towards the later part of her life, what it meant to her, and her own salvation was coming through that mantra.
Sarvam Shivamayam Jagat, the entire universe, everything here is filled with Shiva, is soaked in Shiva, is manifestation of Shiva. Shiva is very personal, yet he is universal. Shiva is beauty, yet he is unseen. Everything what we see is Shiva, yet what we don't see is also Shiva.
Like Ansuya, Naren's life is anchored upon the ancient yogic practices that he's learnt at various Art of Living courses.
I'd start my day, a few stretches, as well as start doing some of the kriyas, the pranayam and the sudarshan kriya, and then lead to meditation. So it's a sequence of maybe going for about 3/4 hour, can stretch to 1 hour, but then it prepares you, where you're in a more blissful state of mind.
Now 78 years of age, he credits these techniques for keeping him energetic, physically fit, and at ease mentally.
When you do the sadhanas, it sort of brings you at a better level. Even if there's pain, you don't see it as a pain. You learn to see happiness in your pain. You take it as a blessing that without this, without pain, sorrow, and things that don't go your way, so it brings you into a state where that realization comes in, that these things, the happiness and the unhappiness, they always work in parallel. They work side by side. And so it makes you learn to accept that aspect of living. Ordinarily before, we used to be sort of very stressed and full of worries that, what you're going to do next, where you're going to be. Whereas now you learn to surrender, you learn to let go, and then you learn to appreciate what you have. It's like what you don't have, you don't worry about it. You lay your emphasis on what you have, and then you move forward with that. So in that way, it's made me a happier person today, here and now, than I was before.
In 2020, Swami Purna Chaitanya travelled through Africa, teaching Art of Living self-development programs. His time here presented an opportunity to write Looking Inward.
My book is a journey that we take the readers on how to manage and finally master our mind and emotions, and to find that point within us, that center, that part which is eternal, which is untouched, and that is beyond all this change, and that can be a true source of strength when everything is changing. There are so many challenges.
During the visit, he conducted one of the first Sri Sri Yoga teacher training courses on the continent.
For me, it is beautiful to see that in just a few days, few hours a day, such a transformation happens within people. And I've seen people come with such distress, such frustration or anger or just a sense of, being lost. And then within a few days, you see people, blossom, where they feel much more happy, much more light, much more enthusiastic. It's amazing to see.
Yoga is known the world over for its many physical benefits. In the East, though, it's accorded a much deeper significance. They believe that yoga, done right, lays out a sacred roadmap to enlightenment.
One of the main and most important scriptures on yoga is called the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And in a very systematic and clear way, the Rishi explains the path of yoga as an approach to experiencing that union, that feeling that you are one with this whole creation, experiencing your true nature, which is beyond the body and mind. In it, he has given us a systematic approach to yoga divided in 8 limbs or 8 different aspects of yoga, ranging from the ethics that you apply to yourself, your day-to-day life, how you interact with the world around you, to techniques to still the mind, to meditate, and to experience that state of equanimity. If you see, most of our worries are connected to the body and our limited identity. Why people are so afraid of death is because we don't know what is next. And because we are so attached to this form, this name, this limited identity, so then you feel very scared. Oh, what if that disappears? What will happen to me? I will be gone. And through yoga, we can experience that part of us which is beyond that. And the moment you experience that, oh, but I have always been here and I will always be here. And no matter what happens, there is a part of me that remains the same. That is why for a yogi, death is just one more chapter. It is not the end. Rather, it is the beginning of the rest of the journey.
Speculating about life after death may be fascinating, but for Ansuya Kushal, embracing life fully in the here and now is much more important.
Let us know that we're going to be going one day. That much is enough. And because of that, what I want to do with this amazing life that I've been given. When I'm on that side, I'll see what's happening. But if I've handled my impressions, my mind now, then when it leaves this body, I'm sure I'm going to handle that well as well.
A soul has come to this world to experience specific things. It is like before you come, you have your to-do list that I am going to take a birth in this place, in this family, with this kind of body, with this kind of qualities, so that I can have this and this and this experience, which I'm looking for, which will enrich me, which will help me to progress on this journey. And when that is complete, when someone has completed their to-do list, then it is but natural to move on.
Losing a life partner led you to move in the direction of inner happiness. That now you want to look within. You don't want to be so worldly. I'm a happier person now than I ever was within me.
When we can see that nobody will go until their time has truly come, it will allow us to have more peace with the fact that they are no longer with us in this body. And it allows us to shift the attention from focusing on the void that they may have left behind to the beauty and the richness they have brought to our lives. Even that soul would be so happy to see that you appreciate whatever they have contributed to your life and that you wish them all the best ahead of their journey.
When you look around you, there's so much to be grateful for. The whole creation around you, the nature and even the people, everything is so unique and so wonderful. It's the joy you see in that. There's even joy in the end. So you start preparing your mind. dying is not unpleasant. Dying is not unhappiness. There's joy that's even beyond comprehension, because you're now merging into the ultimate, the cosmic force.